This is Transcend with Nat, where we are awakening to the spiritual heart, sharing stories and awarenesses along the path of transcendence. Hi, and welcome to Transcend with Nat. This is Nat. I am your host, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about a subject that I recently covered in one of my weekly newsletters. The newsletter is on Substack, and it is called Transcend with Nat. You can get to it through my website, which is transcend.online. And this one was called Metaphysical Matrices of Influence, Overcoming the World. In my travels with my spiritual teacher, John Roger, we went all over the world with a very clear intention of bringing the light, bringing the loving, anchoring these light forms, spreading this pure spiritual energy liberally around the world to various groups and people, touching in with them in a heartfelt way with all those that we may come across, transcending cultures, transcending religions, locations. And at times there would be many people on these trips with us. And I had the pleasure, and sometimes a lot of difficulty, to be quite honest, to be very close in working with my way shower, my mystical traveler, John Roger, and to have an inside track in a lot of ways to what we were doing in different areas. And from my experience, as I became more and more inwardly aware and attuned to the spiritual work that we were doing as we were traveling, and as I was with John Roger and the work he was doing, and then the work that I was assisting in doing, is that we would go places and there would be these matrices of energy, matrices of consciousness, these metaphysical beings, these different karmas that were present in different locations, different historical energetic ectoplasm that would come through from wars, from battles, from long times ago, sometimes ghosts that we'd have to deal with in a positive, not deal with in a negative way, although sometimes it was challenging and difficult. But bringing the light to all these areas, and the nature of the light is it is pure, it is unconditioned. And when you're bringing that unconditioned pure energy into these different areas where there's different conditions, different matrices of consciousness, it can free people who are ready for that, who resonate with that freedom, can free them from the control of these matrices of consciousness and thus these metaphysical beings that are behind these matrices culturally, ideologically, etc. And I wrote about this recently, and so I'm going to just read a little bit from that newsletter. You can sign up to that newsletter on my website, transcend.online, or on Substack. It's called Transcend with Nat. And it says, as you move beyond the inward-looking consciousness work and into the greater service of God by serving each person, which happens concurrently with your own awakening, you will start to do the greater light work, the freedom and loving you express into the world, the more you become a threat to the metaphysical matrices of influence that keep people prisoner in their own consciousness to this world. And the spiritual light and love, by their very nature, as I was saying, are a liberating force. They free the consciousness that is bound into the limitations of the denser levels. And when that happens, oftentimes those under the influence of these matrices may strike out at you. They may come against you. It's a really common experience when you're doing this kind of light work and bringing forward greater loving. Amazingly, there's a lot of people who get triggered by that who are upset by that greater freedom of consciousness, that greater touching in to the loving, because it brings up all these challenges, let's say, that are internal generally. And it also, they can come under that influence because of their karma of these cultural matrices, of these consciousness matrices. And that's something that as you move from just the personal inner work to the impersonal service of the spiritual work being done, as you open your awareness more to those spiritual levels, you will find, as you bring forward that greater light into these areas where people are stuck in these matrices of consciousness, that it will bring up the negativity. It's like pouring that clean water into a jar that has had sediment at the very bottom, so there's a lot of dirt. And it may look at first like it's clear because all the settlement has settled, all the dirt has settled at the bottom, and that's the sediment. But as you pour the clean water in, it brings up all the dirt, and all of a sudden the water looks really dirty. And you go, oh, wow, you're just creating all sorts of negativity. It's like, no, the light isn't creating negativity. It's bringing up things that need to be cleared and let go of. And as that takes place, the more you keep pouring that clear water in, the more it overflows that dirty water and slowly cleans that up to where it can become much more clean and clear, depending on how much dirt people keep putting into that. And that's often how these psychic vibrations and psychic fields work as well. And there's a lot of people these days who are tapping into this sense of there's something going on, some form of control beyond them. And they can point to different people, governments, ideologies, that there's these things that seemingly are beyond their control that they don't like, that are controlling all sorts of other people. There's people who have started talking about this idea of the Matrix. There's other people who, which was a good movie, by the way. I don't know if you remember that movie, The Matrix. It's, I guess, an old movie now, but it was pretty amazing when it came out. Great message. And there's people who talk about the multiverse. There's people that think that what we're living is a simulation, which is really interesting because it's just a new word, that we're living in a simulation, that this isn't even real. And people think that this is like, oh my God, we're finding out about this whole new idea of looking at the world like it's not real, that this is just a simulation that we're all in. If you go back, if you have any experience of reading old texts or sacred texts, I mean, you can go back to the Indian religions that go really far back to this concept of Maya, which means illusion or magic. And they relate the Maya, which is the Maya of this world, is it's an illusion. It's illusory. This whole experience in the outer is this just illusion. And then if you listen to Jesus, and by the way, there's this really good book. It's called The Poems of Jesus Christ. I'm going to take a little side note here and just introduce you to The Poems of Jesus Christ. It's by Willis Barnstone, because Jesus spoke in Aramaic when he was teaching. And Aramaic was very lyrical, like the old prophets and all of that. And as things got translated down into our language, into English, through the years, through Greek and Latin, etc., it became more translated in a form of prose versus lyrical, which is more spoken like poetry. And so the voice of which Jesus spoke in Aramaic would have been more like lyrical, more poet, like in poetry. So when we read the current translations, most of them are in this voice of prose that wasn't how it would have been spoken. And it actually gives new life when it is translated more closely to how it was spoken. It gives a new way of experiencing the words of Jesus in a way that was more closely to Yeshua would have been his name, not Jesus. Jesus is an English way we say that. And so I'm going to read from Luke of the Bible, but I'm going to read from the poems of Jesus Christ. And it says, "The kingdom of God is not coming in an observable way, nor will people say, 'Look, it is here,' or 'It is there.' For look, the kingdom of God is inside of you." That's a pretty clear direction. Where's the kingdom of God? It says right there. So if you're looking for that greater awareness of God, where do you go? Maybe inside of you? Perhaps. There's another Jesus quote I would like to reference here from the poems of Jesus Christ, from John, from the Gospel of John. And that is, "My kingdom is not of this world." It's pretty clear right there also that it is not in this world that the kingdom is. It is not in this world where you go to find God. So when people talk about people being caught in the matrix or living in a simulation, you could just as easily use some old school terminology like Maya from different Indian religions that talks about the illusion. You can go into Buddhism and hear a lot about the illusion, the illusory nature of this world. And here Jesus talks about the kingdom inside. My kingdom's not of this world. This is a constant message throughout time. And now people are thinking that this is a new concept, which is kind of funny to me, because it's been the same discussion for a long time. And yes, this is not the source of existence. This is an ever-changing, what we see, what appears to be real is ever-changing, but the basis upon which it comes and from where it comes is an unchanging nature of God. And when you move your awareness into that, it becomes tapped into this pure energy that is who you truly are as a soul. And it is who God is up there, in here, everywhere, where it is, where you find it. That's the basis when I hear people talking out there about these concepts, that first off, that there's these forces that are controlling, and often they go, there's these people, and often it's, or this ideology. And if you look behind it, and even things that you may think are good, if you can get above the fields of karma, you can see the matrices of consciousness. You can see the metaphysical beings behind these different ways of thinking, these different forms of behaviors. And I talk about that. I go into it deeper in my weekly newsletter, which you can get into. And I'm going to leave you with a little bit from that at the end of that weekly newsletter, Transcend with Nat on Substack. And it says, "No one is exempt here." Words that often escape the mouth of my friend and spiritual teacher, John Roger. He said that a lot. No one is exempt here. We're all subject to all of this, this human experience. the beauty of humans is that we can actually tap into the greater awareness. That's why it's so special to be embodied into this level, as gnarly as it can be at times, as dense as the physical level is, as much as you recognize this inner calling that says, this is not my home. The beauty of being embodied here is that you have the opportunity to trampoline into the higher levels of consciousness and become aware of God. So we are all subject to the influences of living on this planet. There is no one that is not subject to the challenges of being human and living here. You and I are influenced by our own lower nature, by the matrices that we are subject to, that we have karma with. You don't fight your humanity. You must embrace, love, and forgive it. And when you forgive yourself of your lesser nature, you forgive the world, and forgiving the world, you overcome it. And that is the message of expansion. People get afraid of the conspiracies and the matrix of this world and the simulation. But that is the nature of the Christ. That is the nature that Jesus was talking about. That is the way out. And that way out is through the Christ inside of you, where God resides. And there's a consciousness that moves that's a conveyor belt called the mystical traveler. And as you go inside, you can touch into that when you see the purple, and you can flow with that. And you may open your awareness and to these sounds within that have been referenced as the sound current, which is that audible. It's not audible like with your physical ears, it's audible with your spiritual ears. As you move inside, it's the sound, the direct sound of God on the different levels of consciousness. And that's available to you here, now, always. And that's the way out. So that's the message I wanted to talk to you a little bit about today. If you would like to get more information on that, if you want to join the newsletter on Substack, you can go to transcend.online. Also, if you want to reach out to me privately and do the spiritual counseling, you can do that. Also, I do a spiritual life review, which is really looking at your life through the higher levels of consciousness, through the light. And one of the things that I am experimenting with, and if you're lucky, maybe you can be one of those people I do it with, is that in the beginning of these spiritual life reviews, I call on the light and I tap into the spirit and see what it has present for us to work with that day, what's showing me, and I speak that as a blessing, as whatever it is, just as I'm seeing it. And often that becomes the template and the answer for the questions and the experience that the person was coming to me for, and the questions that they had on their mind and the heavies on their heart, that can be released in that first little bit. And I record that and I send it to people after the spiritual life review. And a few people have been asking me to do just that, calling in the light, tapping into the spirit, blessing, and the recording for them, which takes a lot less time, number one, than the whole session, and also gives you an opportunity to just get that spiritual blessing. And so I'm doing a few of those on a person-by-person basis. So you can reach out to me through my website, transcend.online, if you want more on that. And God bless you all until next time. Berush Beishan, which means the blessings already are, and they truly are, because God is present in every moment, available to you, even at the same time of having this human experience, which can include the depressions and the heavies and the upsets and the disturbances and the fun and joy and laughter and all of it, all of what it is to be human, the loneliness. Even in all that, even through all that, there is this divine connection that you can tap into, that you can become aware of, that can lift, that can bring forward that energy that is of a lifting nature, that is of a freeing nature, of the binds of this level and the psychic influences of this level. God bless you all until next time. That's all we have today. Loving me 'cause I'm free. Just forgive yourself. Come on, let it be, 'cause I'm free.